Today we're going to be making a delicious recipe which has been calculated on Trim Healthy Mama as an S meal, and it's called Grandmother's Buttermilk Pot Roast. This is going to be so good. I got this from a cookbook I have. It's a 1990 edition of America's Best Recipes. It's got some amazing recipes in here, and they're not all diet friendly, but this one works for our Trim Healthy Mama plan. So it calls for buttermilk, for roast, and so I'm gonna get it started. I'm gonna make a couple small changes just to make it easy for my day, but I'm gonna show you how I make my version of grandmother's buttermilk pot roast. So we're going to start off by taking some dry mustard, just a small amount of flour, salt and pepper, and we're going to mix those together and dredge our roast in our mixture here. So I've actually had my roast thawing in the refrigerator overnight. So I'm just going to take this mixture and pour it right into the bag that I had everything thawing in. I'm just gonna zip it up and give it a really good shake. This is gonna be like a shake and bake roast. I may have to turn it around a little because it's kind of big. This is only a half-gallon bag. Then we're gonna get our pan nice and hot. We're gonna put just a tablespoon of oil in here. And we're gonna let it heat up, and then we're gonna sear our roast so that we get all these flavors on the roast. All right, our pan's hot, so we're gonna go ahead and add our roast to our pan. In the meantime, I've got some beef bouillon that I put into a cup. I'm gonna add some boiling hot water and get that dissolved. Now this recipe that I'm making is set up for a Dutch oven, but I'm actually going to be doing this in my crock pot because I am really busy today. So I think the difference that I've had to kind of think through is how to put in the vegetables and how to get those so that they're not overcooked. So the vegetables it calls for are carrots and Brussels sprouts. I'm actually going to be putting the carrots in with the roast, and then I'm going to be adding the Brussels sprouts after about an hour and a half to 2 hours when I add my buttermilk. So you're going to see this is going to come out really good. We're going to put the roast after it's all browned up with our bouillon cube water. Mine's better than bouillon. I use that product, so I just mix it up with the water. It's really good. I'm going to put that in with my roast and just let it sit on high for a couple of hours. Then I'm going to add my buttermilk and my Brussels sprouts. So I'll show you the process. I just wanted to kind of tell you the difference of how we're going to be cooking this. So as you can see, our roast is actually falling apart because this was the roast that I made into slices on my meat cutter, which is perfectly great. This is going to cook up so good and tender in our crock pot. And I just want to brown it up a little bit before I put it in there just to get that extra flavor. All right, so we've got a really good sear to our meat. So all I'm going to do is transfer this to the crock pot. Just like this. Water. And that way it can take up all the little pieces on the bottom. So all I'm going to do now is just put this mixture, this broth, into my crock pot and just pour it right over my roast. So this is my roast with my broth over it. I'm going to go ahead and set that on high for an hour and a half. And I've decided I'm going to add my carrots at that point too. I've got them all cleaned. I'm just going to set them aside in the refrigerator, and I'll bring you back as soon as I add my veggies. Well, this dinner smells amazing. My whole house smells so good. So I got my carrots all cut up. I decided I'm going to go ahead and clean my Brussels sprouts. Now, this recipe calls for either a package of Brussels sprouts, a nice big package of Brussels sprouts. I opted to get some fresh ones. I love Brussels sprouts. And it also calls for buttermilk. So I always like to just take off any leaves that are, you know, rough around the edges. These were some really nice Brussels sprouts. So all I'm gonna do is just cut these little tips off, and then I'm gonna wash them. All right, I'm just gonna add them to my carrots. In another hour, I'm gonna be adding my vegetables to my roast. So now that our meat has been cooking, it's been a couple hours actually, I'm gonna go ahead and put my vegetables in. I've got some Brussels sprouts and carrots. I'm adding those to my meat mixture. I'm just gonna give those a little stir. And as you can see, it's already, since I had this roast sliced up, mine's gonna be more like a sliced beef, which is just perfect. And then I'm gonna be adding a half a cup of buttermilk right to our mixture. And we are gonna cook these now until they're tender. So I'm gonna leave these on high, probably another 2 or 3 hours. And then I'll probably cook it on low until I'm ready to serve this as a meal. So the last thing I'm gonna do is make my gravy. So I took my Brussels sprouts and my carrots out. I actually put them in the oven just to warm, and I took the beef out as well. So all I'm gonna work on now is the gravy. So the first thing I wanna do is I wanna add the drippings from the roast to my pan. I'm just gonna add that directly from my crock pot. And then we're gonna add our buttermilk and a very small amount of flour. We're gonna add 1 cup of buttermilk plus 1/4. We're gonna add that, and then we're gonna put a little bit of flour in here, but not very much. So it says 2 tablespoons of flour. I'm gonna start off with 1 and see if that is enough. Add it to a little bit of water. We're gonna see how that works out. We're just gonna stir this until it thickens up and makes a nice gravy. Now you'll want to taste this and make sure that it's flavored enough for you. That's delicious. All right, I've thickened up the gravy to the consistency I want, and so I am just gonna add this meat back in here. Mine is already sliced because that was the kind of beef I had. So I'm just gonna add this to my sauce here, my gravy. And I'm actually gonna take this off the stove. This is cooked up enough for me. All right, my buttermilk pot roast, grandmother's buttermilk pot roast is all done, and I'm gonna show you how I plate this up. Now I'm not gonna add these vegetables back in with the meat. I'm gonna keep those separate. I'm gonna go ahead and just serve up some of the pot roast. So now all I'm gonna do is serve this with some Brussels sprouts and some carrots. I like the Brussels sprouts better than the carrots, so I'm gonna have quite a few of those. And there you go, dinner. Now I'm also gonna be serving this with a nice green salad. And I decided tonight I'm gonna go ahead and put a boiled egg over the top of my salad. I just feel like I've been getting more hungry later, so I wanna make sure that some of this protein will help me stay full. So there you go, a delicious Trim Healthy Mama meal. Can't wait to try out my roast, so I'm gonna try it for you just so you know how it came out. All right, let's give our roast a try. Maybe with a piece of carrot. Wow. You have got to give this a try. Talk about melt in your mouth. Oh my gosh. This is delicious. Delicious. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this recipe for grandmother's buttermilk pot roast. It's an S meal on Trim Healthy Mama. Enjoy yourself. You don't have to starve and go hungry every time you go on a diet. It's ridiculous. You can lose weight and eat the things you enjoy. So thanks for watching tonight. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel. Give me a like, a thumbs up, or ring that bell for future notifications, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.